Hi everyone, my name is Tom Seaman. Today I'm doing a program that's called Tips for Managing Stress and Emotions. I'm a life coach, author of a couple of books, and a speaker. I've also written numerous articles on this particular topic as it relates to both physical and mental health issues. And in my life coaching practice, this particular topic comes up a lot. So I wanted to put together a program that I hope will help you with whatever kind of issues you may be experiencing in your life that are causing undue stress and unwanted emotions. I'm doing it in a slide format because you will be able to more easily stop and read some of the information and also maybe even take some screenshots or, of course, go back to it. So I'm doing it this way versus actually recording myself speaking, so the information is hopefully easier to go back and find. So why is it that I am discussing this particular topic? Personally, I live with chronic pain from a health condition called dystonia, which is a neurological movement disorder, and stress can really worsen my symptoms, just like it can for any other health condition. So it's not specific to dystonia. Or even if you don't have a health condition, it can just make life miserable for anyone in any walk of life. So stress is something that's really, really tough to live with. For those of you that want to learn a bit about dystonia, I'm going to do a few slides here that will share what it is, and what it feels like. If you are familiar with it already, you're more than welcome to fast forward to the section on stress. But I'm going to fly through these pretty quickly here. So dystonia, as I mentioned, is a neurological movement disorder. The typical symptoms are uncontrollable involuntary muscle spasms and contractions, and it can cause a lot of repetitive movements, twisting of the body, and or abnormal postures. Essentially what it is, it's a co-contraction of opposing muscles. And I'll do a little demonstration in a moment that will give you an idea for how that feels. Now, these muscle contractions, they can be sustained or intermittent, and they sometimes include a tremor, or they could just be a tremor. It can cause varying degrees of severity, and there are absolutely no two exact cases of dystonia, which makes it hard to diagnose and also very hard to treat because treatments are also highly variable. Now, some people may look highly symptomatic, and you'll see some photographs of me in a moment where, when at my worst, I was very clearly very symptomatic. But there are some people that don't have any change in their physical appearance, and the way a person looks is not in any way an indication of what kind of pain or other symptoms they are experiencing on the inside that may be invisible. Dystonia is the third most common movement disorder after Parkinson's and essential tremor, which most people have heard of. Most people have not heard of dystonia, even though it is the third most common. It's estimated to affect 500,000 in North America and over 1 million worldwide. However, I think these numbers are probably quite low. I would say it's probably double that, although I don't have any information to really prove that. But it just seems that these estimates, based on a lot of other things and resources I've seen, this seems to be a little bit low. So it's getting to be a little bit more common, or at least it's being recognized more and diagnosed more accurately and appropriately, because a lot of people go years without being diagnosed appropriately. Now, there are many forms of dystonia, and it can affect any part of the body or more than one part. I'm not going to go into all the different parts of dystonia. I have another video that goes into all of those different things, but now I'm just going to focus on the form that I have, which is a focal dystonia, which is called cervical dystonia, cervical referring to the neck. So focal also refers to dystonia being specific to one part of the body. So as I said, in my case, it's the neck, but it could be your eyes, it could be your jaw or your mouth or your arm or your hand or your leg. So it's one specific part. There's also multifocal, where it may affect more than one particular unrelated part of the body. There's also generalized dystonia, where it can affect the entire body. Other forms as well, which I said I'm not really going to get into right now, but I will show you something about generalized dystonia in just a little moment, because it's an interesting type of a form of dystonia. So these are the forms of cervical dystonia. These are the prototypical forms. Most people don't really manifest exactly as it shows right here. Most people, the most common are the top two, which is rotational callus and laterocollis. And oftentimes people will have a combination of more than one of these four forms. Typically, rotational and lateral tend to be the most common combination of symptoms. That's how mine typically manifests. So I've had this for over 20 years now, and at my worst, this is how it manifested. You really can't see in still photographs how severe the contractions are in my neck, and because you're not seeing the movements that went along with the contractions. But I was literally stuck in these positions. My body would not move from these positions because the muscle contractions were so severe. So I was locked in this position. Plus these spasms they're really not even spasms. The contractions would pull so hard that my body was constantly moving and trying to fight the pull, so to speak. So here's a picture on the left, and I want to put this picture in here because a very common telltale sign of cervical dystonia is one shoulder raised higher than the other. And that's because of a shortening due to the contraction on the most affected side of dystonia, which for me has been the right side. The picture on the right I included to show you me trying to peel a banana. And again, you can't see in a still photograph, but I was going through periods of time back then when I was having full upper body spasticity, and just peeling a banana was a monumental task because my body would move so rigidly and slowly that it was very, very hard to do and extraordinarily painful. And whenever I laid down, you can see the way my neck would be twisting, and it was locked in this position, and it would be twisting harder to that left shoulder, when it was actually moving and contracting. So what does dystonia feel like? I'm going to give some examples of how it is for a lot of different people. This is not across the board how everyone feels it, but this is what I've learned over the years has been what a majority of people feel. A Charlie horse. Many of us experience a Charlie horse. It's which is a cramp in your leg, in your hamstring. So imagine the Charlie horse feeling in the affected muscle. So imagine the feeling of a Charlie horse in your neck. That's what I experienced for many years. I've learned many things to improve upon my symptoms, so it's not as severe as it was. But there are moments and times now still when it can be pretty rough and pretty bad, just like that. So it can feel like the body parts are almost like in a vice or being squeezed by a snake because it's just constant contracting. It's like you're being strangled. I often feel like my throat is being closed up because my neck muscles are always tightening, which makes it feel like somebody's got their hands just wrapped around me and squeezing. Some people describe it as feeling like their head is being pulled off their body, or because it's so off balance, it feels like the weight of a bowling ball. And I've experienced both of those before. So the muscles will pull, turn, and twist uncontrollably, as I mentioned before. And the pain, not that I really know what a power drill feels like in the body, but the pain was so severe for me and for many others that it's kind of like you're being drilled with this, you're being nailed with a power drill in those muscles. And it can also feel like a rope is pulling the affected body part off center. So I'm going to do a little demonstration for you if you want to try it. This is the one that I do with most people that seems to really give a good idea for how it feels. So what you're going to do is you're going to flex your bicep muscle, and as you're flexing your bicep muscle, try to extend your arm at the exact same time. Now remember, do not relax your bicep. Keep flexing your bicep as you try to extend your arm. Now, if you're doing it correctly, there's no way to extend your arm, because in order for the arm to extend, the bicep muscle needs to relax, and you need to engage the opposing muscle, which is your tricep muscle. What you're doing now, if you're contracting and you're trying to extend, you are contracting both your bicep and your tricep, the opposing muscles, which is exactly what happens in dystonia. Now, if you do this for a minute or longer, more than likely, you're going to feel pain, you're going to have shaking, and it's going to be very uncomfortable. Now imagine that sensation nonstop in the body part affected, and imagine that feeling like I had in my neck for years. It's absolutely unbelievably unbearable and hard to even explain how uncomfortable and painful it is. Now imagine this happening in most or all of your body. This is generalized dystonia. It's a very severe form of generalized dystonia, but I mentioned this earlier because I wanted to share this particular image, and in the context of that bicep flexing example. So imagine that feeling in your arm, in your entire body, and that's what many people go through. I created a video several years ago that's called "What is Dystonia and What Does It Feel Like?" where I give this example plus many other ones. So if you want to check that out, you can go ahead and just type in that in the search bar and it will pull up. It's only a 4-minute video, and there's a couple different examples and demonstrations that you can try for yourself. So let's get on to the topic here, which is all about stress. So what exactly is stress? Well, stress is a feeling of emotional or physical tension. It can come from any kind of an event or a thought that makes us feel frustrated, angry, or nervous, and it's basically our body's reaction to a challenge or a demand. And it's very normal. So in short bursts, stress can be a very positive thing, such as when it helps us to avoid danger. The problem is when stress is prolonged and kept alive in the body, that it becomes problematic. And this is the case for a lot of people with and without health conditions. And I want to share why it's so incredibly important to work on this, especially if you have a health condition, because it can dramatically make it worse. So I want to share with you first about the stress, anxiety, pain cycle. So when we are having stress, anxiety, and or pain, we tend to go into fight or flight. When we're in fight or flight, we tend to experience a lot of anxiety and fear, which doesn't make us think clearly. So we tend to misinterpret and catastrophize the symptoms we are experiencing, whether they are related to a particular health condition or if they are not. And so those can include, in addition to pain and other symptoms, they can include sweaty palms, heart racing, heart palpitations, weakness in the legs, feeling dizzy or like you're going to pass out, difficulty with vision. So when these things happen, we tend to go into panic mode, and that creates more fear, which releases a stress hormone called adrenaline. The adrenaline then kicks us back into fight or flight, and if we don't break this cycle, we stay in this, and it creates more trauma to our mind and our body, and either will exacerbate existing health problems or, if prolonged, could potentially create health problems. So it kind of looks like this. You have, when you're in this state, you just want to run, but you really can't run from it because it's going to stay with you. And running actually kind of makes it worse. The key thing is to learn to sit with it, and I'll go over that a little bit. You need to learn to sit with what's uncomfortable. Then we also have misinterpret. So when this misinterpret is in this state, she says you must be ill or going insane, maybe you're having a stroke, and all these thoughts come to your mind when literally all you're feeling is just the body's stress response. Then you have Mr. Catastrophe. What if this never goes away? What if you collapse? You need to escape. What do you, go to the doctor. And there are many people that get into this panic state and they go to the ER, and the ER really can't do much for them because they need to break out of this cycle in order for the body to get to a calm place where it is seeing things from the proper perspective, not the perspective of when we are misinterpreting the signals the brain is telling us when we are stressed out. So for a lot of people that deal with anxiety, stress, and pain, or all of these things on a regular basis, they could be literally sitting in their comfortable living room, completely free of any kind of danger at all whatsoever. But on the inside, what they feel is as if they literally saw a bear in their window. So imagine if you were to see a bear in your window and how you would stress out, or maybe you have and you can remember what it felt like. There are people who live like this all the time because they have not learned how to break that stress cycle. And this is something we have to try and get out of. So I like to talk to people oftentimes about how anxiety looks. And so one of, I think, nature's best creatures to do this is a squirrel. And if you observe the behavior of a squirrel, they're constantly on alert, and I've never seen a squirrel blink in my life. And they're always frantically moving around. And this is how people with stress, anxiety, and fear feel on the inside almost all the time, no matter what it is they are doing, which is incredibly unhealthy for the body. So what is the impact that stressful emotions have on our health? Anything like anger, shame, fear, frustration, bitterness, resentment, jealousy, etc., they keep us stuck in that fight, flight, freeze, stress mode, which is not supposed to be activated all the time. So what happens if it is it creates an environment in the body where no kind of healing is going to take place, because the body is constantly pumping out stressful pro-inflammatory chemistry. So it's going to amplify or worsen all of the physical symptoms that you are already experiencing. It's when we choose to come to terms with the reality of our lives and learn to work with the challenges that we have and not fight against them that we can start to see positive changes. So a little word about stress itself from my perspective is that it's really just a perception and a judgment based on our own unique experiences in life. What stresses me out may not stress you out or somebody else. And so we all have a different type of a reaction to things. So the key thing is that if we change our perception of the life experiences, we can change stress responses and their damaging effects. And the more we do this, the less we have an automatic stress response to things that are often not even stressful. But if you're stuck in that stress cycle I showed before, we become very reactionary to almost all things, where everything seems like stress and the world seems rather scary. So in this state of mind, it's important to ask yourself, what causes me stress? Why does it cause me stress? And how can I look at things differently so I can reduce or stop allowing them to stress me out? This is really a practice in mindfulness. It's becoming aware of it versus running from it or misinterpreting it or becoming Mr. Catastrophe. We have to learn to go within and ask ourselves, what exactly am I feeling right now? Why am I feeling this way? What can I do differently to improve upon this? When we do this, we enter into a healing cycle. So if we're dealing with pain, stress, anxiety, fear, etc., and we become mindful of it versus running from it or fighting from it, it creates less muscle tension. Less muscle tension then leads to less stress and anxiety. We can then think more clearly, where we're out of the misinterpret or Mr. Catastrophe mindset. We then choose activities more wisely because we're thinking more clearly and more mindfully. We then experience less pain, stress, anxiety, and fear. We feel more in control, which gives us a greater sense of well-being. So on the left, we have the stress cycle. And on the right is the key for getting out of it. It's being mindful of it. And that's what I mentioned before about learning to sit with it. When you're experiencing discomfort, sit with it, see what happens, become mindful of it. And then you can break this misinterpretation and catastrophizing of the symptoms to reduce the panic, which then creates more adrenaline and fear, and then the fight or flight kicks back in again. So become mindful of it, become aware of it, don't judge it. It simply is what it is, and be with it, and learn to be okay with what you view as not okay or what you view as uncomfortable. And that can help to reduce the pain of the stress that is created. So here's some strategies to break away from stress. Not everybody is going to experience the same results from doing these different things, so I want to list a whole bunch of different things you can try. Massage, acupuncture, good movie or a book, physical exercise, music, dancing, breathing. A regular sleep-wake cycle is helpful. A lot of hobbies like shopping, arts and crafts, etc. are also important. Getting out in nature is also really, really helpful for reducing stress. Spending time with quality family and friends. Quality family and friends helps too, but quality time with family and friends. We don't choose our family, obviously, but we do choose our friends. So I want to say a word about this regarding boundaries. We need to make sure that we keep the toxic people away and keep those that lift us up and support us close to us. And that's a key thing about setting boundaries and really sticking to them. And if I were you, I'd avoid the news. I did an experiment about 5-7 years ago now where I said, I'm just going to stop watching the news and see how it makes me feel. And I did this and I noticed two things. One, my stress level dramatically dropped. And two, I noticed I wasn't really missing much of anything. And the big important things that I needed to know about, people told me anyway, or it would pop up on my phone or my computer or on social media or anywhere else. And so this for me has been a huge thing that has helped me to reduce my stress and my anger and my frustration and my sadness. Doing good deeds are also really helpful. They help to increase endorphins and serotonin, which are known as the feel-good hormones. Animals are helpful. Saunas, hot tubs, biofeedback, nutrition, sunlight. That vitamin D is very important and helpful. Laughter as well. And the brain doesn't know the difference between real and fake laughter. So even fake laughter can help to increase endorphins and serotonin. So even if you're feeling crummy, you can do a belly laugh that's totally fake, and it can actually help to make you feel better. And also prayer, meditation, and positive thinking and affirmations. I put affirmations last because I wanted to share with you one of the affirmations that I like to use when I am going through a tough time and I'm trying to kind of white knuckle life. So that affirmation is, I relax into the flow of life and life flows through me with ease. This one helps me realize that I'm pretty much not in control of a whole lot except for how I respond to things that happen in the world and in my life. And I have to try and stop controlling the flow of life around me and become part of the flow of life. And this particular one is very helpful for me. I got this actually from a book called You Can Heal Your Life, written by Louise Hay, if you want to check it out. She's got all sorts of affirmations in there. This one is one that really just resonates with me. So when we resist the flow of life, which I'm just as guilty as the next at doing, how does it look and feel on the inside of our body? It's like two people are fighting. It's like the body's at war with itself. And who wants to feel this way? I know I certainly don't. And when I am resisting the flow of life and trying to control and white knuckle everything, this is how I feel on the inside. There's this incredible tension that comes from all of that. So how do we want to feel on the inside of our mind and body? How do we want it to look and feel? I'm going to share some images right now that are different from the two fighting, the two guys fighting. I don't know what they're going to evoke in you, but when I see these upcoming photos, they create a feeling of peace and calm, which is what I try and manifest in my life in all situations, as much as I possibly can. So this is a picture of the beach not far from where I live, actually. I took this photograph, and a lot of people will see this picture and they will kind of go, ah, that's beautiful and nice and calm and peaceful. Well, that's how you want to try and create your mind to think about things so that you can feel that way no matter what's going on or around you in your life. Some people, such as myself, are more fond of mountains and lakes, and this is really a peaceful, serene image for me that when I look at it, I have a very different feeling than the one of two people fighting. So whatever feeling comes from looking at this photograph, I try, again, like I said, I try and cultivate that into my life as much as I possibly can. And this is one final photograph of a sunset I took. I've taken up the hobby over the past few years of taking photographs of sunsets at different locations near a river where I live. And when I go down there that particular time of day, I have this sense of peace and calm and groundedness that I don't typically have during the day as much as I do when I'm around water or around the sun setting. This particular time of day is very healing for me and very peaceful for me. So when I look at this photograph, it reminds me of those feelings. So a very important point I want to mention here. It's not what's happening to us in our life that defines us and how we feel. Okay, it's all about how we react to it and what we do with it that defines us and determines our character and how we feel. So life is tough. I mean, let's just be honest. Life is hard. Life is challenging. Life comes with a lot of ups and downs. How we respond or react to the things that are occurring in our lives is going to dramatically impact the level of stress we experience and the impact that stress has on our health. So life is kind of filled with a bunch of storms, and we have to go through storms so we can play in the puddles. So it's really not about avoiding the storms. It's about learning how to basically dance in the rain. So thank you very much. I hope you found this to be helpful information. If you'd like to contact me with any questions, there's my website, tomseaman.com. If you have any ideas for any particular shows you'd like for me to do, or videos rather, you'd like me to do in the future, feel free to contact me. I'm also on Twitter and Instagram, and those are pictures of the two books that I've written. That first book is on the left. That's the Dystonia book, and the other one I wrote just last year. And they are both available on my website as well as on Amazon. And I also am a life coach, so if you'd ever like to, I offer free consults. So if you ever like to talk with me to see if we're a good fit and you might be able to help you with some things, I'd be more than happy to talk with you. You can go to my website. There's a place to sign up for a free consult. Again, thank you, and I hope this was helpful, and I hope you are doing well.